Welcome to the Daredevil Season 1 recap. This video is meant as a refresher, not a replacement. If you haven't seen the show and want the full experience, I absolutely recommend watching it, as it's widely considered one of Marvel's best series. But if you're gearing up for the next season, jumping into the Defenders, or just want a clear reminder of what happened, this recap is for you. And with Daredevil now officially confirmed as canon within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, let's dive in. So where does Daredevil fit into the larger MCU timeline? Well, Season 1 takes place shortly after the incident, also known as the Battle of New York from Marvel's 2012 film, The Avengers. In the aftermath, Hell's Kitchen, a neighborhood in Manhattan, is overrun by multiple crime cartels fighting for control. Here we're introduced to Matt Murdock, who was blinded as a child in an accident involving a chemical spill that heightened his remaining senses. By day, Matt opens a small law firm with his best friend Foggy Nelson. By night, he fights crime as a masked vigilante known only as the Man in Black. Their first client is Karen Page, a secretary at Union Allied who's been framed for murder after accidentally uncovering a money laundering scheme. Matt clears her name, protects her from a hired hitman, and exposes the scandal through investigative reporter Ben Urich. Grateful for saving her life, Karen joins Nelson and Murdock as their secretary. Behind the scenes, a man named James Wesley, quietly pulling strings, orders Russian mob leaders Anatoly and Vladimir to deal with the vigilante by kidnapping a young boy and luring him into a trap. We then flash back to Matt's childhood and learn the truth about his father, battling Jack Murdock, a boxer murdered by the Hell's Kitchen Irish mob for winning a fight he was ordered to throw. Jack Murdock wanted to show Matt that a man doesn't win by taking the easy way out, he wins by standing up, even when it costs him everything. That lesson becomes the foundation for every line Matt will later refuse to cross. In the present, Matt fails to rescue the kidnapped boy and is left brutally injured, collapsing into a dumpster. He's found by nurse Claire Temple, who brings him back to her apartment and treats his wounds, discovering that he's blind beneath the mask. Matt refuses to give his name, but when his heightened senses detect a Russian mobster searching the building, Claire helps hide him. Matt then captures the man, interrogates him for the boy's location, and throws him off a rooftop, promising he'll survive. After his father's death, Matt was placed in St. Agnes Orphanage, a Catholic institution run by nuns. It's here that he develops his strict, deeply guilt-ridden faith, and because of that faith, Matt draws a line he refuses to cross. He will not kill. He then storms the hideout, defeats the guards, and finally rescues the boy in what's widely considered one of the greatest fight scenes in Marvel television, the now iconic hallway fight. Unlike superhero spectacle, this scene shows exhaustion, pain, and consequence, redefining what grounded Marvel action could look like. After the Union Allied scandal, James Wesley takes notice of Nelson and Murdock and hires them to defend John Healy, a professional assassin. Foggy wants nothing to do with obvious criminals, but Matt accepts the case, using it as a way to uncover who Wesley really works for. At the same time, Karen is offered hush money by Union Allied, who threaten legal action if she speaks out. Instead, she brings what she knows to Ben Urich, despite pressure from his editor to drop the story. After defending Healy in court, Matt confronts him in costume and forces the truth out of him. Healy reveals a single name: Wilson Fisk. Rather than face the consequences of betraying Fisk, Healy takes his own life, proving just how feared Fisk truly is. Matt starts searching for Fisk but finds no records of him anywhere, forcing him to continue interrogating criminals for answers. Behind the scenes, Wesley offers the Russian mob help on Fisk's behalf, implying they've become expendable. Insulted, Anatoly and Vladimir decide to eliminate the vigilante once and for all. They track down the Russian Matt previously threw from a rooftop and learn about Claire Temple. Claire is kidnapped but manages to warn Matt in time. Matt rescues her, wiping out the gang and convincing the Russians they may need Fisk's protection after all. Anatoly personally confronts Fisk while he's on a date with art curator Vanessa Mariana, the one person who sees Fisk not as a crime lord, but as a deeply wounded man trying to impose order on a broken world. With Vanessa, Fisk isn't hiding, he's aspiring. Humiliated and enraged, Fisk brutally decapitates Anatoly, sends the body to Vladimir, and frames the vigilante, marking the first time Fisk's quiet control explodes into public violence. In the aftermath, Fisk reassures his criminal allies, including Chinese crime leader Madame Gao, and quietly calls in a favor. Meanwhile, a Hell's Kitchen tenant turns to Nelson and Murdock after a powerful developer begins using intimidation and violence to force residents out of their homes. Foggy learns the tenants are being pressured to either accept the payout or be evicted. While investigating the developer, Matt overhears corrupt police officers murdering a mob informant, confirming that Fisk's influence reaches deep into the police department. As tensions rise, Fisk manipulates the remaining Russian mob into a war they can't win. Madame Gao's operatives wipe them out, leaving Vladimir as the last survivor and one final source of truth. When corrupt police move in to kill Vladimir on Fisk's orders, Matt intervenes and escapes with him, taking him to an abandoned warehouse. With Claire Temple's help, Matt treats Vladimir's wounds, but their location is reported and the building is surrounded. Over police radio, Fisk speaks directly to Matt, calmly explaining that while he respects what Matt is trying to do, it clashes with Fisk's vision of saving the city. Fisk frames the vigilante by ordering an ESU sniper to open fire on police officers. Before dying, Vladimir reveals the name Leland Owsley, Fisk's accountant, and sacrifices himself so Matt can escape. Matt tracks down Owsley, but his search is interrupted by the return of Stick, the harsh mentor who trained Matt as a child and abandoned him. Stick recruits Matt to stop Black Sky, a mysterious weapon being smuggled into New York by the Japanese, led by a man named Nobu. The truth is revealed. Black Sky was never a weapon or an object, but a person, and actually a child. Despite promising Matt he wouldn't cross that line, Stick kills the child anyway, proving how far apart their worldviews truly are. That betrayal pushes Matt to turn on his former mentor. The two fight, and Matt defeats Stick, forcing him to leave the city. Meanwhile, Karen Page continues digging into corruption tied to Hell's Kitchen. When she's confronted by the developer's hired men, Foggy steps in to protect her. After learning what Karen has uncovered, he decides to help. Karen and Foggy bring Matt into their plan to expose Fisk. Matt agrees, but only if they rely on the legal system and stop putting themselves in danger. Behind the scenes, Fisk's criminal allies begin turning on him. His accountant and the Japanese faction blame Fisk for the chaos caused by the vigilante, while a corrupt detective awakens from a coma and threatens to expose everything. Matt intervenes, but arrives too late, though he gains crucial information about how deeply Fisk's influence runs. Sensing weakness, Madame Gao warns Fisk that if he doesn't regain control, he'll be replaced. Shaken, Fisk confides in Vanessa, privately admitting that he murdered his abusive father as a child. Instead of rejecting him, Vanessa accepts him completely. She becomes his moral anchor, not by making him better, but by convincing him that his actions are justified. Empowered by the acceptance, Fisk steps into the public eye as a legitimate figure, presenting himself as a philanthropist and savior of Hell's Kitchen. By controlling the narrative, he buries the corruption case Matt and his allies were building, forcing them to find a new angle on Fisk. After Fisk presents himself as Hell's Kitchen's savior, the group searches desperately for something from his past. Matt visits Vanessa at her gallery and comes face to face with Fisk for the first time. Nobu demands the city block Fisk promised, the same block where the tenant Matt tried to protect lives. When the tenant's murdered, Matt realizes Fisk orchestrated it to clear the property. Matt confronts Nobu in a brutal, close-quarters fight and barely survives, accidentally setting him on fire in the process. Already broken and exhausted, Matt is then confronted by Fisk himself. The fight is vicious and one-sided. Fisk beats Matt nearly to death. Matt escapes by sheer will alone, collapsing in front of Foggy moments later. After Claire treats Matt's wounds, Foggy confronts him about his blindness and double life. Matt explains that after watching the law fail, he stepped in where it couldn't, but Foggy can't forgive the lies and leaves the firm. Ben Urich, worn down and offered safety, abandons the investigation on Fisk. However, Karen refuses to let the truth die and brings Urich to Fisk's mother, Marlene Vistain, who reveals Fisk killed his father. Meanwhile, Fisk hosts a charity gala, which turns deadly when guests including Vanessa are poisoned. Still recovering, Matt says goodbye to Claire Temple, who urges him to get better protection. Matt tracks down Melvin Potter, an engineer forced to build weapons for Fisk, and convinces him to create a suit for the Daredevil. Karen pushes to publish Fisk's past, but Ben Urich worries the story won't hold up. After Karen uncovers Fisk's most closely guarded secret, his mother, James Wesley has her kidnapped and she wakes up in an abandoned building with Wesley calmly threatening everyone she cares about. When Fisk calls mid-interrogation, Karen disarms Wesley and turns the gun on him. He shrugs it off, convinced she won't pull the trigger until she does. Killing Wesley saves Karen's life, but it devastates her, leaving a permanent emotional scar she carries forward. Using Ben Urich's information, Matt dismantles Madame Gao's operation, forcing her to flee the city. In the aftermath of Wesley's death, Fisk is shaken, losing not just a lieutenant, but the one person who kept his world in order. Tracing Wesley's final call back to the one place Karen uncovered, his mother, Fisk realizes how exposed he's become. He urges Vanessa to leave the city for her own safety, but she refuses. With Foggy continuing the case alone, Ben Urich prepares to publish Fisk's past independently. But before he can, Fisk learns the truth. Ben visited his mother. This time, Fisk doesn't send someone else. Calm and deliberate, he visits Ben Urich himself. But when Fisk speaks of his mother, the restraint cracks. What began as control turns personal, and in that moment of rage, Fisk murders Ben Urich with his own hands. Ben dies not because he was reckless, but because the truth finally scared the wrong man. Matt and Karen attend Ben Urich's funeral, carrying the cost of telling the truth. As Fisk tightens his grip, he silences Leland Owlsley personally when an attempted blackmail crosses the line. At the same time, Matt and Foggy reconcile and rebuild their case, while Daredevil convinces a corrupted detective to testify from the shadows. Federal agents finally arrest Wilson Fisk, but his power reaches even behind the bars, and he's freed during transport. Before Fisk can disappear, Matt intercepts him, now fully suited in the iconic red armor for the first time. No longer hiding in the shadows, Matt confronts Fisk head-on. The two clash in a brutal, exhausting fight that pushes both men to their limits. Matt emerges victorious and leaves Fisk for the police, not as an executioner, but as a symbol of justice Fisk can't control. With Fisk imprisoned, Vanessa leaves the city. Nelson, Murdock, and Paige reunite. And at last, the city gives its masked protector a name: Daredevil. And that wraps up Season 1 of Daredevil. The rise of Matt Murdock, the fall of Wilson Fisk, and the birth of a vigilante Hell's Kitchen will never forget. Matt's story continues in Daredevil Season 2, where the lines between justice, violence, and identity are pushed even further. If you want to stay up to date with future Marvel recaps, timelines, and guides, consider subscribing. And let me know in the comments what was your favorite moment from Season 1. And remember, we're here to watch the realities and guide you through the timelines.